Going guys, my name is Brendan Roan, and I will be talking today about college athletics and specifically paying college athletes without jeopardizing the amateur nature of college sports. Over the years, we've seen college athletics revenues skyrocket, mainly from basketball and football, with the NCAA bringing in over $14 billion among sports programs, but this also leaves out how just about 3% of schools competing in the NCAA bring in about 54% of all of the money with all of their major athletic funding and recruiting over schools that may not have these resources. Looking at the amount of money spent on student aid versus coaches' salaries, we see massive drop offs in between the two. With over 4,400 Power 5 coaches making over $1.2 billion in salary, this is compared to $936 million that's funded into student aid over 45,000 Power 5 student athletes. Some believe that paid scholarships are actually enough compensation for athletes, but do not realize how much the NCAA is profiting on these athletes long term. According to the NCAA membership report, television and rights fees account for 86% of the NCAA's total revenue. This is mainly due to college football games and the NCAA tournament, and some people believe that athletes should get a cut of this. My plan on how I would eventually pay these athletes while also not jeopardizing the value of education and amateurism in college athletics. My first step would consist of making college athletics trust funds. People believe that setting money aside for players to receive after graduation would be much more beneficial and popular with the public than paying students outright while also explaining and valuing the education and mission of college sports. This also ties into the conflict theory, which you learned about in class, and how it would allow lower income schools to still be able to put money aside for their athletes without getting crushed by Power 5 teams and their big recruiting efforts and having little to no resources. The next step would ultimately consist of taking a percentage of the NCAA's TV and broadcast rights. As I'd said before, that the NCAA brings in over 86% of their revenue from these TV and broadcast rights, that they could probably set aside some of that money to go into these trust funds. While also my third step would consist of, on a national scale, of creating a bill and a law that would create student athletes to use their own image and likeliness to promote products and companies. We've seen this being done in California with the Fair Pay to Play Act, which was introduced in 2019, allowing college athletes to benefit financially from their likeliness and namehood. While this could seem like something that would go against the NCAA's constitution, it would ultimately be the best way for the top level recruits to make additional money separate from what the NCAA is providing through these trust funds. And it would also be something that they could look forward to in the future and set aside other money that they would be making and put it towards their families if they're a family in need or someone struggling in general. The step would ultimately consist of creating some kind of restrictions and guidelines that comply with these trust funds that they're providing, just to make sure that the students are paying attention on and off the field and they're working hard. It's kind of like an incentive that they can keep working hard and looking forward to something after college. And there could be other kind of stipulations for it, that if their family needs the money like right away, that the NCAA can still provide this before they graduate. And I think it would just be a really cool idea that it would all be, because the biggest problem with the NCAA right now and trying to pay these athletes is it's not going to be equal, and it's not going to work with lower market teams that aren't in the Power 5 and just don't have the resources like Ohio State, Penn State, all of those kind of resources that they have, that they could pay these athletes. But creating a trust fund would be the perfect idea that would incentivize these students to just work hard, graduate if they're not going to be able to go off into the professional leagues, and ultimately just help their family overall, because that's the biggest goal here. And that's something that they'd have to look at throughout the next couple of years when that bill gets passed in California, when they're able to use their own likeliness and namehood to use their own names to incentivize themselves. Thank you.